Please help me welcome Joe and Becky Spencer.
Well, this is my first webinar, but that I've actually been running things. I've been on the watching end of things, but we're excited to do this. Like she said, I am the District 3 president. So some of this stuff has been really, really helpful when I've been out of class many, many times this year to attend different district events. So this is flipping the classroom, and I'm just going to share my screen. So there it is. Share that. So hopefully you can all see my my screen here. I'll just slide this up. You can oh, I hit the wrong button, of course. So here we go. So basically what we have here is the presentation that Joe and I have given a few times this year. And if you have any questions, feel free to chat or chime in. And so here's a link to it I'll show at the end again too if you just want to see the slideshow. But a flipped classroom is basically, as you can read there, it's just a strategy of traditional learning in the classroom, but it flips it around. Instead of doing that learning in the classroom, you're doing it outside of the classroom. And then you have more time then in the classroom to do more hands-on activities and deeper diving into topics instead of, just covering the basics and hoping they got it and then sending them home with homework and not knowing if they got it. You can flip that, learn what they need to learn at home, and then you can check what they got from that in the classroom. I have to say, here's my favorite graphic I saw about the flipped classroom, and I didn't make the graphic, and I wish I credited here who did, but in this version of the presentation, I didn't do that. But it's a nice example of what we're talking about. The students go home and they learn about an activity or a concept that you're going to be learning about in class. Whatever that is. The next day they come back and they apply it, and then they can continue to expand that at home. Now, something I want to say is, we've been doing, as music teachers, especially for in the ensemble setting, this isn't that different of handing a kid a folder filled with music, telling them to go home and practice, and then they come into their next rehearsal prepared. They've looked at it. They know what, basically, maybe it's the melody or maybe it's their part, whatever it is, that they've practiced, and now you're helping them apply that to how you're going to use it as an ensemble. I teach a lot of general music. I teach in the Du Bois Area School District, and I teach 6th grade general music, and I also teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade chorus. Next year, we are a 5 through 8 middle school, and so I will be doing a little bit of the same thing, but with an extra grade and a co-teacher. So it's going to be really different, but I'm kind of looking forward to it anyway. The concept really that I found is it works great in the classroom, general music setting. But also I should point out there's something else that's not flipped classroom necessarily. It's called blended classroom. And I think what I do with general music is probably more of a blended classroom. And what blended classroom is, you're combining these things that I'm going to talk about, like the websites and the student management tools and YouTube, with activities that you're doing in the classroom. Part of it's traditional instruction, part of it's more, non-traditional or computer instruction, where they can start it in class, start to dive into that topic, and then if they're interested, they can go home and dive further into that topic. It's a little different. That's blended learning, but I think they're both very close. So you may have heard the term flipped classroom, you may have heard the term blended learning, and though they're different, they have a lot of similarities. So you can think of it that way. So here's just a list of tools and ideas for a flipped music classroom. Now, I use a lot of these are owned by Google, and a lot of these are Google products. And we are a Google Apps for Education school. I don't think they even call it that anymore. I think it's a Google Suite. I believe they call it Education Suite. G Suite, Google Education Suite School now. But we have that resource. So I use a lot of the Google stuff, but a lot of what I'm going to show you, you can definitely do with your class, even if you're not a Google school per se. So Google Sites is the first one I'm going to start with, and it is something that, excuse me, we started using, I guess 2 or 3 years ago. And before that, we had, it's a website. It's a way to build a nice website. Before that, we used something called Schoolwires. I think a lot of schools use Schoolwires. And I actually use something called Wikispaces also. Wikispaces is defunct now. It doesn't happen anymore. They shut down the site. But it works very similar to Google Sites, if you're familiar with anything like that. And it's a very, very easy way to build a website. This is a screenshot of my website, my school website. And this is something that all the students can get through our district page. And so, yeah, I have a nice picture of the choir. That was super easy to put on there. And if you visit my site, it's very catchy. You can see at the top all of the different pages we have. This is a great way, if you have a video you want to show, you can attach that. Let me see, I think I can pull up my school website actually. If I exit here, my first time on let's see. Actually, maybe I'll just have Joe pull it up and he can show us that. Do you want to pull up my website while I'm talking? Anyway, but it's really easy to attach a YouTube video. It's very easy to attach a document if you want to attach a document, a worksheet, a Google form if you're familiar with Google Forms, something you want them to go home and do that night. The great thing about all of these things I'm going to tell you about too is every single one of these are an app on a student's phone. You can download them very quickly and use them as an app. If you are a one-to-one school, we are not, but if you are a one-to-one school where the students all have access to a device, this works very well. If you're not, like we're not a one-to-one school, many of our students are able to get on the things that we do on any of these programs on their phones. So they can get on my website, and if you can use a word processor, you can make a Google site. It is, everything's on the left-hand side of the screen, and then, or the right-hand side of the screen, and you can just put it in there. I'm gonna, actually, I think I do know how I can do this a little easier.
Only one of us can share at a time.
It says, that's okay. I'll keep sharing. I think I just thought of an easier way to show this. So if I move this down a bit, okay, I can, right in here, I'll actually show you how I built the site. If you go to sites.google, and this is kind of interesting. They have a new Google Sites that only can be edited on Chrome. So if you use Safari, I have a Mac right now that I'm doing this on. You have to go to a Chrome browser to do this. But I have several web pages, and if I open the chorus website and then music, my school website, you'll be able to see that very easily this can be edited by the left side of the screen. I keep saying left, it's right. The right side of the screen, stage left side of the screen, you just hit text box, you type in what you want. You hit images, you can search on your computer for images. You can embed different things. You can actually embed HTML, I was get it wrong, HDMI. Wait, HT. You can embed website stuff, yeah. And you can put it on there, and you can see too, you can get things right off of your Google Drive and it pops in. This is a 5th grade, 4th and 5th grade, since we have 5th grade coming next year, recruiting video that I have, that I've been going out to all our elementary schools in the district and showing them. We just show them some of the stuff we do, and it was so easy. And we're going to talk about YouTube in a little bit. It was so easy to combine those two things. take a video, take several videos throughout the year and just different pictures, throw them into iMovie, upload them to YouTube, and then right on the side here, there's a button for YouTube on the right. And then I just popped it right in. It's a very easy way to make a website. Here's an order form for our t-shirts for this spring. So things like that. For communication as well as flipped classroom things. So I used to use my website when I had the Wikispace for a lot of this kind of activity, flipped classroom stuff, where I would put videos from the different countries where we were going to talk about in music class, or I would put examples of songs we were going to be singing in choir that they could listen to. Honestly, I don't use my website for a flipped classroom purpose as much as I used to because of some of the other things I found kind of work better for me. But if you are able to, even if you don't have Google sites, if you want to have any other kind of website, you could use that website very easily as a tool for a flipped classroom. You put things on that website, the kids are expected to go check that. And then the next day you talk about what they saw in the video you posted, or you talk about, the song you had them listen to. So that's one idea, which is the flipped classroom. Now if I get back to my PD presentation. All right. So there we go. And so next is Google Classroom, and this is something Joe and I kind of embraced a few years ago, and I think we both really enjoy using it for purposes of not only the flipped. I've used it a lot for a flipped situation, but it's a great way to communicate with students. It's set up very similar to almost like a Facebook page, I guess, when you're on the page, an information board, maybe that might be a better way to think of it. But here's an example, a screenshot of one of my posts on Google Classroom. And Google Classroom, I guess you call it a student management.
Learning management.
A learning management tool. You're right, a learning management tool. So it's a learning management tool. You can have classes made. This is 7th grade chorus, obviously. And you can make up whatever classes you'd like to make up, and you put certain things just for that class in there, or you can send it to multiple classes at once. Here we were learning the song Dodie Lee, and I had samples taken from YouTube of each of the parts and the solos, and they could listen to that before we even really started to practice it in class. In fact, we never really practiced the solo parts in class. I asked them to learn them. We went over the pronunciation. Actually, the video actually does that too, but we went over the pronunciation in class, and then they worked on those solos at home, came back, and on the day we were going to do auditions, and I had wonderful auditions, and it saved us a little time in the classroom because they were doing that work at home. I can show you my current. Here's a list of classes you can see. Now we have 12 weeks classes right now, and we have six music classes. Joe and I actually have an interesting situation. He teaches right next door, and he does band, but he also does the 6th grade general music on the days that I have chorus. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I teach the class. Thursday, Friday, he teaches the class. So it's the same kids in the same class. So we share a lot of our Google Classroom pages, and you can set it up for more than one teacher in the class if you need to do that. But you can see we have the different classes here and the different things that we have. And you can set it up for after school things too. The Trials of Robin Hood was our middle school play this year. And we had a group for that, for announcements, and we have a ukulele club and different things like that. You can make a class for just about anything. And it's a great way to announce things that are going on and to put different assignments on. I have to say that, this is the one I want. Out of the assignments I've put on there, the ones that work the most are probably ones that are linked to other things, either a YouTube video or something called Nearpod that we're going to go over in a little bit. But you can see here, here's another one that I just put in scanned images of a couple measures that they were having problems with. And then I told them to, I asked them a question about it. Or I told them to, practice those certain measures. And I could put both, here's the music. And then the next post, I put myself and a group of students performing those same passages so they could practice along. And I don't know about any of you, but at this time of year, I always have a class or two that's way ahead of everybody and a class or two that's way behind everybody. In this grade level, we have the PSSAs, and they tend to be here and not be here on different days during that week or those weeks. And so if I have a class that's ahead of everybody, I will film them doing something that the other classes haven't learned, and we'll put that on the Google Classroom. And so the other classes can watch it and they can hear it and they can know what we're it's familiar to them before we go over it in class, which I've had a lot of success with so far. So I know I really liked Google Classroom, and now you can actually do Google Classroom without having to have any kind of subscription to the Google Education Suite. You can just go to, is it just Google Classroom with classroom.google with any a Gmail account or any kind of Google account, and you can set this up on your own outside of the school setting. Now I have to ask Joe, students will have to have some kind of a Google account though to join it. So they'll have to create, if they don't have a Google account, they'd have to create that in order to join it. But it's worked well. There's other learning management systems. I know Emoto is one that I had some colleagues use before we had Google Classroom here. Can you think of any other? Blackboard, of course. Yeah, Blackboard's one that you may be familiar with. So
you do have a question.
Oh, great.
With what you post in the Google Classroom, do you have any issues with like copyright concern? If you're posting music, how much are you posting enough that would be a worry?
I have to say that typically I try not to post. I probably post in a few measures at a time, that kind of thing. But I did have one situation where I was posting a couple pages of a song, and it was actually composed by a friend of mine, and I actually gave him sent him an email and asked would it be okay, and I got the permission to do it. I think that kind of falls along the same lines as copy music for class and things like that. It's I guess everybody has their own philosophy and whatnot on that. But I try to only do, we're going to work on this line. So I put the line on, that kind of thing. And if it's something I found on YouTube, I figure I'm showing it from YouTube. YouTube has, and sometimes they'll scroll the score. YouTube will take care of those legal issues for me. So I'm putting on what I've just linked to YouTube, basically. So I don't worry about that so much. But when I'm taking actual music that I've scanned or taken a photograph of, I try to keep it to just a few, like, look at this measure. What is that note right before the fermata or whatever, you know what I mean? It's usually for a question kind of purpose. And, something simple. So I try not to put, full songs and full scores or anything like that on Google Classroom. But I do think for educational purposes, when it's right there in the kids' classroom, I feel like it's a little different than if I were to copy it and send it home or whatever. But I do try to keep it limited. I guess that's what I do. I don't know if you have anything else to add.
As far as putting stuff in Classroom?
Yeah.
Well, why don't you mute yourself?
I'll mute myself and you can talk.
I found
Sorry.
that if we're both unmuted.
Yeah, as far, did you mute?
Oh.
Thank you. Turn your volume's really. We're like the middle school teachers on Saturday Night Live. Hot mic. Okay, so as far as posting stuff in Google Classroom, I mean, first of all, it's not open to the world. It's only open to your class. So I think that helps with a lot of that, because you figure, you know, your chemistry teachers are probably putting things relating to their chemistry textbook in there and all that. So I think it's a little different than just posting it on a website for the whole world to see. So I think seeing that it's limited to just the people that you're academically engaging in your class with, I think that helps. And as far as things from YouTube, YouTube does a very rigorous copyright search. Anything you post on there, like if I were to post, you know, something by Parliament Funkadelic on there, just, you know, music, they would go through and they actually have an algorithm that searches anything that's posted on there for copyrighted material. And they will, you know, if it's something that that particular band or copyright holder wants limited, they will either remove it. Like if I try to post something by Metallica, they're really strict with that, or they will monetize it themselves. And so, you know, give the money to the copyright holder. So they're really good about that. So I really wouldn't worry about anything that's on YouTube as far as copyright issues go. And I know the biggest thing is, like, obviously, you know, copying a million copies of one chorus piece that you bought off of J.W. Pepper. Sorry, I just something in my throat.
Going.
But you know, that kind of stuff I think is very different than putting something in Google Classroom that's you know, for your class to use. So I think you're pretty safe there as far as that goes. Are we transitioning
Yeah,
on
we're
to the
gonna
next?
switch. Well, yeah.
Okay. So that was a really good question, actually. I like Google Classroom because it is compatible with slides, Nearpod, which is something I'm actually going to go over next, and Google Docs, any Google Google Docs, Google Slides, Google Sheets, all that stuff, and it's one click and you're done, kind of thing. So that's actually really convenient. And then Nearpod is not a Google owned thing. So I think one of the only things I'm talking about tonight that isn't Google owned, but it's not a Google owned thing. But I love it. I really do enjoy Nearpod. It's something I use with my I just used it today in class, actually. And so I'll bring it up. Here's an example. You get a code. I'm sure everybody's familiar with Kahoot. Everyone does Kahoot. Kahoot seems to be a thing that everybody likes to do in class. So when we, the kids know that if I put a code up, we're doing something interactive, and they really, really like that. So you get a code like the one you see on the screen, and then you can send it to your students via email or social media or a link, or you can embed it on your website, or you can put it right into their Google Classroom, or even send it via Remind. It'll give them the code, and they'll know they can go to nearpod.com, put in that code. And what Nearpod is, I'll get it up here. It's a website that you can take a slideshow you've already done. Maybe it's something you've done for years as a PowerPoint, and you can take that. Maybe sign in. You can take that and you can turn it into a Nearpod. Which, let me sign in real quick. Oops, I forgot an S in my area. And when you get to you'll see my library. A lot of these were PowerPoints that I did for years in school, and then in classes. And then all I had to do is create a new Nearpod and put my slideshow that already existed right into it, and it converted it to be used this way. And as you can see, as I scroll over it, it could be a live lesson, which means I have it on my screen in my room, and each of the students, any of the students that are on their iPads or anything here in class, they can see the same thing that I see. Kind of like this, they only see what I want them to see then. You can paste it. But what you do when you're doing it for flipped classroom or even a blended learning, you do a student-paced activity, which when it's student-paced, they get the code, then they see, and I can show you a preview of one of these. They get the code. They don't get anything here on the right, that's for me to say, hey, look, there's some other ones you could use. But they get what you see on the left side of the screen. They get a slideshow. Basically, they can take a quiz in the slideshow, and if they're on iPad, that's even better because they just slide right across and they're on the next slide. They can answer questions about things we did in class. They can read new things. I can skip the quiz. They can go through, and one of the things we have in a couple of these Nearpods is a virtual tour. So you can go on a virtual tour. The one is of Times Square, and it's fun because when we do it as a blended learning and they do it in class, if we have time, they pick up the iPads and they start wandering around the room, and I have to tell them, you're going to run into each other. You can just stand still and turn side to side and you can see everything. But you can get those through Nearpod. You actually, it's one of the options when you're making a slideshow of things you can add. You can add matching cards. You can add the virtual tours. And it's a neat way for them to, we can't take everybody, in the school on a trip, but we can see the Taj Mahal and around the Taj Mahal by looking on these virtual field trips. And like I said, these can go right onto a number of platforms, and they can really easily access them and be very, very engaged, either in the classroom or at home. Sometimes I'll put them on Google Classroom, and on like a Sunday night at like 10 o'clock, and I think we're going to do this one in class tomorrow, and I'll have kids that have completed it. I don't know why they're not in bed Sunday night at 10 o'clock, but they have completed it before they come in the next day, and they're all excited, and they're telling the other kids, oh, this one has virtual reality, or this one has, a matching quiz at the end. So it's something that they've really been engaged with, and I've really enjoyed using it. So YouTube is actually the next one. And everybody uses YouTube. And Joe and I use it kind of differently for different things. So I'll start with what I do, and then I'm going to turn it over to him. But YouTube, you can find videos for just about anything. So if we're going to do a review of instrument families with my 6th graders, I'll put on this is actually a great series from the BBC. I'll put on different videos on Google Classroom of, tomorrow's going to be woodwind day. And so they'll go home and they'll watch the woodwind video or the string video, the brass video, they'll watch those. And then the next day when I say, okay, let's see who watched their videos last night, and I, hold up an instrument, they can say, that's a viola or whatever. So obviously that's a really easy way to use it. And again, from both Google Sites and Google Classroom, there's just a button you hit for YouTube. You don't even need to know the URL of the video. You can just type in BBC strings and you'll get a list of things with little icons. You can find the one you're looking for, pops in there very easily. Or you can create your own video. And before I turn it over to Joe, I'll just show you something that we've done. I haven't done it as much this year, I guess, as I did last year because I use Classroom more. But I use Nearpods and stuff more this year. But last year, before I would go to a festival, we would do a C124 after hours. We would do a video that the kids, my students, could watch, and they could. It would be some kind of instruction from me to them while I was gone, or that they could do at home and over the weekend or whatever. And so when I came back Monday morning after being at a festival basically every other weekend during, February and March and January, they could not be behind. They were like right with me. Like I wanted to be here by that day, and they were with very few exceptions. They were there. They were watching everything. And I find the best way to do that is I'd either just stay after school and play through it or sing through it myself, or I would just grab a bunch of kids and say, okay, you guys know this. We're going to sing this part so people can practice with it on C124 after hours. And we made a YouTube channel. You can see here on the left hand side of the screen, I have a lot of YouTube channels that I've made. And because it's just a very easy way. If I know we're going to be learning about different things, I can just say, all right, well, I know we're going to be talking about India today, so I'm just going to pull up the India playlist. I actually have a TV and an Apple TV in my room. That's what we have instead of a whiteboard. And so because of Apple TV, I have that tool right there that I can just hit the YouTube app, and then my playlists are all there. Making playlists for YouTube is as easy as finding the video, hitting the plus sign underneath the video, and typing in what the name of the playlist you want to add it to is. I would suggest, if you use a lot of YouTube videos in class, making sure everything's in playlists, because you never have to search for a video again, which is fantastic. So I think I'm good with my stuff. I think I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Joe. So this will just take a second.
All right.
Oh, I gotta.
Feedback.
I gotta.
Okay.
I gotta
I'm gonna-
stop sharing. So.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
All right. We're going to share the screen. This screen. There we go. With Google Classroom. Except this thing's at the top here now. I can't see it. Okay. So looking at my classes, we share some of these. So the music classes we share. There isn't a whole lot in it right now. What I've been doing is giving them a lot of little assignments and then exporting them, clearing the class out, and then adding new stuff. So I'm not going to worry about going into the music class right now. And I think she talked about some of the stuff that we do with Nearpod and some things like that. I'll go into one of my end classes just to give an idea of how that works. And again, I know this is feeling very much like a Google session, but there are other ways to do this. And this isn't a website. This is a learning management system or platform. And so there are several different ones that you could find, some of which are completely free. But the whole idea is the kids log in and they can do tasks in there that you can kind of keep track of the tasks and use that as a form of keeping track of who's doing it. You see, sometimes what I'll do is I'll post information, like this is our band concert information, just sort of in there for them to read, not an assignment. This one we did voting for our t-shirt design and also selected sizes, which we used a Google form, and Google Forms is awesome. And if you've never used one, they're completely free. It's a great way to collect information. You can make them accessible, so you can use them as a quiz to give a grade, and I'll do that sometimes too. So you can see, out of my 6th grade band kids, I can kind of keep track of who's done it and who hasn't. So we need to get some shirt sizes. I think we tell them everybody gets it back down. They don't turn it in. Anyway, we figure it out. But then I put something in about our concert dates, and all I have down for them on that is to just reply. The way it kind of builds some accountability, and you can see 2 kids were being cute and said, "Please give me a 0 for not paying attention." So somebody asked me today, so well, if I do that, what do I get? I'm like, you get a 0. It's pretty simple. Fundraisers, when we do fundraisers, sometimes I'll just put a little thing in there just to make sure that they know what's going on. So a lot of my stuff is yeah, and they can comment on. You can turn that off too. Sometimes I'll leave it on just for fun. You can also mute them if they really get annoying. But usually I keep it open so that they can say stuff, and they get a little engaged with it sometimes, which is cool. Sometimes I'll put in like we're doing a song, we're doing a Pirates of the Caribbean medley that has all kinds of enharmonics that the kids weren't really used to, like the flutes had some C flats. And so after I kind of run into that, I'll post this, or sometimes if I know that it's coming up, I'll post it in advance. And some of the kids have the app on their device, and they'll get on when they get a little notification, and they like to be the first ones to go in and answer stuff. So this particular one, you could do them as multiple choice, or you can just do them as open answer. This one I did as open answer, and I just kind of left it there. And the next time I see them, I'll say, hey, you might want to go in and take a look at that. G sharp is not the same as C. she's a drummer. We'll give her a break. But, that I try to do that because rather than just, dinging them for getting it wrong, I try to figure out if they know what's going on, and try to repair their understanding in any way possible. So that's kind of some of the stuff that I do with Google Classroom. And you could do that any number of ways, but just to kind of reiterate, it's really like open to the world. You have to log in, you have to either be invited or everybody together, everybody log in the classroom, here's your class code. And you can also send their parent or guardian, which there's only one, unique account for Hayden Allen. So across all of his different classes that his different teachers have, if the teachers invite a parent for one of them, it counts for all of them. So that's kind of cool. We have never been invited for any of our own personal children's Google Classroom, so I have no idea what it looks like from the teacher side or from the parent side. I'm kind of curious to see what it is, but that's something relatively new that they rolled out. That's a nice feature. Yeah, we'll find out eventually. Yeah, and then as Becky talked about some of the YouTube related, I've found kids will listen to their band music on YouTube 1 million times more than they'll ever go to like J.W. Pepper and look it up, even though they could very easily do that. And so I've had a lot of success with either finding their music on YouTube and posting links to it. And as she mentioned, it's super easy to do that. I use all of that stuff in the classroom, but I've found, my classroom Google Classroom starts to look like my physical desktop and also the desktop on my computer, and it gets way out of control. That stuff in here under class materials, this is kind of a new thing I discovered. So if you're posting something from YouTube, it's super easy because, YouTube is Google. So if I wanted to post something in there, and I want to search for a video to post in there, it'll automatically look it up. You don't even have to grab it. You could grab the link if you wanted to. So anyway, as far as YouTube goes, the kids are super into YouTube. I know we have a 4th grader at home, and they will literally watch YouTube like it's TV. Like if you have it, they'll just sit there and watch it. So if it's on YouTube, its credibility goes up about 1 million times. So one thing that I found that was cool is putting their band music on YouTube if it's not already on there. And some of the publishers are really good, like Hal Leonard, they have a YouTube channel that they put all their new stuff on. Sometimes the old stuff isn't. So if sometimes I'll upload it, if it's something to do, and then I'll go in and find it. And I'm not sure. I don't know how to do it. And then loaded. But that's a really cool thing. Like I just discovered that not too long ago. It totally blew my mind. It was actually a student that showed it. So that's a cool thing. As far as uploading, if you need to just upload an MP3 to YouTube real quick, I love this Tunes the Tube site sometimes because you don't even have to think about it. You just upload the MP3, put in a picture, and bada bing, and it's done. So, and as I mentioned, if it's something that's copyrighted, it'll run through YouTube's algorithm, and so they will either monetize it on behalf of the publisher, or if for some reason they didn't want it on there, they took it down. As I discovered, though, they're also really picky about stuff like there was a Civil War piece that I uploaded, and I grabbed a picture of Gettysburg, Battle of Gettysburg, and it had a Confederate flag in the background, and they flagged it as like inappropriate because they're really sensitive about anything dealing with any kind of anything controversial. So it's pretty cool. I'm not sure where we are in the presentation, but is it time for smart music? It's always time for smart music. Yay. So I'm using a Chromebook today for whatever reason. I think I didn't bring my laptop. I can get to whatever of it. I don't think this smart music or knows of it, or walk to the conference and the smart music people do into a cool thing. As far as ways to give your kids stuff to work on inside of the classroom that hopefully will draw them in and get them a little more engaged when it's time for class, I've had a really good outreach to. And one thing that I've discovered, longer pieces of music, chopping them into some smaller pieces, are really good for me as far as trying to focus. Like they're Pirates of the Caribbean, which is real tough for middle school kids, particularly my sixth graders. And so one thing that I found is, I don't know if you can see this on there, I can pull up the whole thing, but I chopped it into smaller pieces. So I took the song, I just used another program called Audacity, and I took the song and I put it into pieces that I wanted to focus on. So the first part of the song was beginning 45. I just made an MP of just that part of it. And even if the song is in Smart Music, normally Smart Music shows notation. When I stick it to the sign, it shows the action on the screen that they play, and then it assesses them with the little green notes you can see there. They send it to me, and I can listen to it. And then they send it to me, and I can grade it, and then give them a grade, and either send it back or whatever. I'm losing little pieces of my screen.
While we have a quiet moment, is anybody else experiencing like it seems like he's cutting out a little bit?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time hearing.
Now, I didn't notice that when Becky was talking. So, Joe, are you in a dead spot?
I'm looking at MP3. If it's not a song that you can access in Smart Music, I upload an MP3 of each different little sections of the song so that the kids can work on them individually. And so probably work was first begin 45. And then when I felt like they were ready to be tested on it, I upload. And then basically they just play along with everything. So they send that in to me, and then I can grade it and move on to. They can work on their own. They'll work at a few at a time. Their band lessons. If I'm working with some of the kids, all the other ones will go and do that. It's really cool to take a big piece of music and chop it into some little accessible pieces that they work on, and just trying to jump on the whole thing at once. So. This is actually the old version of Smart Music. I'm going to upgrade hopefully for next year and get the ones like fully Chrome compatible. But that's a really cool thing to do, to be able to give the kids something that they can take their band music or whatever and put it together. So
you have a question. Do your students have to purchase?
That I've been using in general music, I do a lot with guitar. That's kind of like my piece of what I work on in
Hey, Joe?
My couple days a week of music class, and I've been looking for something that I could give the kids that would kind of let them get the same thing, where they could work at their own pace. One of the things I do with Smart Music is that with their lesson book material, I give everybody, a few pages, and then if they pass those, then I give them assignments for another few pages, and they keep going and going. So I can level the kids and give them stuff that they can work on that's at their level. And I was looking for something for guitar that was kind of the same thing, and I stumbled upon this summer. Let me just, it's a real quick little demo video that may or may not load.
Hey, Joe, can you hear me? Joe? Hello? Okay, I'll get to your question, Ian, but I don't think he can hear me.
promise it was short. I am a bit, I know pedagogy in the guitar world, that's probably a little divisive, but I really like tab. But Musician actually does have, and you can see it's kind of a video game-like notation system that they use.
It also does note.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You can actually switch it so that it shows real notation and a combination of tab and real notation, and it tracks the kids off, like it listens to them play, so it tells you whether they're getting the note right or wrong or whatever. I think I lost my little Sherry thing. Oh, there it is. Okay, let's get my camera back on. So, and I actually use it on iPads, like when the kids use it individually. My music class will all kind of split up after I go through things, and I let them individually get on. And it has a whole path that they follow. And when you open up an assignment, I actually have it set so it shows both real notation and tab, which is kind of cool. I really enjoy that. So you could change that, if you wanted to use just tab, they could do that. You can see that shows the, probably can't see, but you can see the real notation up on top, and then you can see the tab, which is cool because it's really nice for those beginning kids to be able to know exactly where to put their fingers. Also, we found we can't always guarantee when the kids come to us in 6th grade that they have a lot of music notation fundamentals. So we found, like with guitar, if we were going to do something that was more traditional with guitar, we would have to spend probably a couple weeks at least teaching them how to read music and then taking those skills and applying them to guitar. So I had a really good time with this. And as you saw in that little promo video, in addition to guitar, they also do piano, ukulele, and bass, which has been really cool because once the kids pass their required things for guitar, I let them do exploration on other instruments, and everybody knows these days ukulele is like super huge. It's the next big thing. So that's been a lot of fun. So I think that kind of covered what I was going to go over. If you wanted to jump back in, and
We did have a question. I don't know. I tried to ask it a couple times, but I don't think you can hear me. About smart music, do your students have to purchase their own smart music subscription, or does your school district provide that?
We'll switch. I'll mute and you can tell them.
I got the, ooh, you got to turn, yeah. You're loud, your computer's loud. I got the option, which I think is going away, but I go with what's called practice room subscriptions. And so it is pinned like by device. So I think I have 4. Some years I've gotten 5. So basically what I do is I attach a subscription to the iPad, and then all the kids log on using those devices. I have a few kids, probably half a dozen or so, that have their own subscriptions that their parents paid for, so they can practice at home whenever they want. A couple times a year I will call in and kind of like beg for some trial subscriptions. So usually beginning of the year I'll get trial subscriptions so that as many kids as want it can have it. And then that's kind of when we do like our level palooza, where they try to pass as many levels for the year as they can. But yeah, you can do it different ways. I mean, the new smart music, I think they have kind of a package deal that you get like 50 subscriptions for X amount of money, and then you can add on from there. But I think they can be swapped. So that's probably what we're going to end up doing next year.
Great. Any other questions, I guess?
I don't know. Are you?
Okay. Well, if you have any questions, I guess we could put our websites up there.
Yeah, if you want to throw that up. And then, yeah, if anybody has a question, you can feel free to unmute yourself at this point to ask, or you can type into the chat box. That's working. I just realized in the beginning of this that I forgot to tell you that even though it says I'm Abby Young, I'm not Abby Young. For those of you who didn't catch on, she is on vacation right now with her girls in Disney. I'm Shanna Danielson, the Director of Education and Events. So I took for granted that Joe and Becky knew that, and sorry, but when I was eating my ice cream a minute ago, Abby's face was up there, so. But yeah, if anybody has any other questions, feel free to ask at this time. Oh, we got one. How do you motivate your students to use the Google Classroom at home?
Actually, we've done a couple things. Jill, could you unshare your screen for me? Up at the top, maybe. So we've done a couple things to motivate. I did a series of questions where they were going to get 3 questions a week, and they throughout an entire 9-week period, and they had to go and get those questions from Google Classroom, and they had to have 30 whatever questions by the end of that 9 weeks, and they were going to get a grade for it. And if they didn't log in to check out the questions, they were going to lose points. And by week 3 or 4, when I would say in class, we're up to 12 questions, we're up to, 9, 12 questions, 15 questions. They were like, well, I better be logging in because I'm getting really behind. So that's one of the things I did to get them used to going there. Also, we would do little games, I guess, with the C124 After Hours videos. I would put on different videos, and I would say things like, all right, the first 4 people to respond with the word coconut gets a piece of candy if they stop by my room tomorrow. And like, they love candy. So that would work. Or I would say, okay, what is the word that everybody shouted at the end of the song we sang on Google Classroom? And so that's how I would kind of check in to see. But I think a lot of the times we make it part of their grade. I know I have things on there that I make a part of their grade, and I think Joe also has things on there that he makes a part of their grade. I don't know, Joe, if you want to chime in.
Well, try to make it fun. It's like anything else we do. I mean, we're like P.T. Barnum, plus whatever else. I found, letting the kid, I try not to mute the kids unless they get really like over the top and they start, as I call, spamming,
With their
because they
comments.
like to be able, they really enjoy that. When we first let the kids, like our 6th graders, usually when we get them, they haven't been on Google Classroom much, or they may have gone on once or twice in 5th grade. And when they realize like they can chat and they can do all that stuff, it gets pretty exciting. They're like, oh, cool. But, obviously our goal is to shape that kind of fun, crazy interaction into something educational. So, plus I tell them, I said, this is something that you're going to be doing in school from now until whenever you're done with school, because, it's the way of it now. Even your brick and mortar classes have some kind of digital component, like 99.99% of the time. And us as teachers, we're expected to have that additional component. So the more fun you can make it, and just getting the kid normalizing it, just like we're kind of expected to be on task with work email outside the school day, I think we can kind of let the kids know, that's part of life too. Your academic life, you need to be able to get used to logging in, or just, you get a notification on there, and if you're not busy, hop on quick and get it done. But it seems to help. I mean, obviously not everybody does, and not everybody has access, but the more kids that are doing that stuff on their own, the more I don't have to worry about that stuff during the class. And then you get those few kids that just don't do it, and then they're the ones that I usually just hand them a Chromebook during band and say, hey, log on and do all this stuff, because you're way behind.
I know too with our own children, it's being used more and more in our own district, and there are some teachers that's the only place they will put assignments, and they will put to do the assignment you have to go and find the form. The only place you can find the form is on Google Classroom. So it's kind of, I think the best way to use it is to kind of make it something that they have to use. And I know we've run into problems with students who do not have access at home, and it's fewer every year, but you always have a few students who will say, I can't get on Google Classroom. And we have some time built into our school day here that the students have an enrichment period and some other periods, and those days where they don't have band or chorus, I think a lot of them have been able to say to their team teachers, we do teaming here, can I get on a computer. I have to do Google Classroom assignments for music, and they have other classroom assignment, other teachers that do the same thing, and they're able to get on here at school in our library. And like Joe said, there's been times where kids are like with the t-shirt forms and things. I wasn't able to get on Google Classroom. We don't have internet at home right now, or our cell phone was shut off. And then what we'll do is we'll say, okay, well, it only takes like 5 minutes anyway. Go ahead, sit over there with one of the devices and get it done quick. And so we try to be flexible with that because, obviously it's not the student's fault when they don't have internet access. I do have to say it's less and less every year, because with a lot of these things, there are apps now they can get on their own. They can even do it on their iPods or their, other devices too. I think someone said they had a Google Classroom app for like a Kindle Fire or whatever. So you just about everything has the app, but we try to be sensitive in those cases where students just can't do it at home. They have to do that at school. So.
I have a question, Mrs. Setzer. Gosh, how
Okay.
can you get enough devices for your class when you're broke as heck at your school?
Well, because we're broke as heck, I know this, but we started out, we started using a lot of this technology with the Google Classroom and stuff. We didn't have anything like that. We're not a one-on-one school. We do have technology carts. Each team has a Chromebook cart or I don't even know if they still have the laptop carts. I think they just have Chromebook carts, but they share them for a whole team. And what we started doing is initially we bought a few iPads with our Band and Chorus fundraiser money. And then from there, we just started putting things on Donors Choose. And Joe and I are big advocates of Donors Choose. We have gotten a lot of things through Donors Choose. And we are up to 16 iPads and 6, I want to say, Chromebooks, something like that. So, and almost all of them have come from Donors Choose. And next year, we've been told we're going to get our own Chromebook cart down here with the extra classes with the 5th graders, but we'll find out. But I'm a really big advocate of find a way to make things happen. Don't sit around and complain about them not happening. Just find a way to make them happen. So we found our way was through Donors Choose. So we ended up doing a lot with that. And we do a lot of group activities in our classes, so we can share a lot of the iPads. And then the biggest thing is when Mr. Sensor has a Google Classroom assignment that he has everyone in his class working on, like for a bell ringer, and I wanted to do the same thing with my class. Then sometimes we get into a little bit of a who's going to get the for the most part, we're able to work it out pretty well and move forward from there. But I have to say again, big supporter of and a fan of Donors Choose. They had their best day ever, where all of their projects were funded by but yes, I was going to get to that in a second, but where all their projects were funded. And I got 6 projects funded in one evening. So it really was the best day ever. It was really awesome. And Joe is actually a Donors Choose ambassador. So he actually will help people set up new Donors Choose accounts, and he'll help people advice on how to have a really successful project.
And I also have gift codes for teachers to give them help funding their projects. So I have access to actual money I can give them.
Yeah. So if anybody out there
Yeah.
is interested.
So if anybody out there is interested in putting anything on Donors Choose, please reach out to Joe. His email address is in the chat, and he's real good at getting people started with that. Okay.
Did we lose Abby, not Abby?
No, she's
Hey.
Okay, so thank you to Joe and Becky. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording here.